Hello, if you're a woman who is getting divorced or recently divorced and you're starting to think about a new relationship and you want to know how to keep yourself secure financially in that new relationship, then this is the video for you. I'm Kerry Griffiths. This is the Willow Brook Lifestyle Financial Planning YouTube channel, and it's been designed for women who are getting divorced to get money savvy and confident in a really safe environment. I'm delighted to be joined by a wonderful guest today. I have Marjha with me. She's a partner and head of family law at a boutique law firm in Monmouthshire, so not far from where I live, and great to have a solicitor along, a lawyer along who is outside of London. She works for RDP Law, and she has a wealth of expertise in high net worth and farming divorces, and already 15 years experience providing advice across London, Bristol, the three counties and Wales. So I think we've seen those doors open, haven't we, Marjha? Definitely with Zoom, that we're not stuck in Wales and we're helping out across the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just going to finish off by saying that she is regularly instructed in complex, high-value matrimonial matters. She's got a key eye on relationship planning advice for her wealthy clients as part of her lead in RDP's wealth protection offering. So that's why I've asked Marjha along today, so that I can pick her brains and kind of find out about what might be on offer for you if you were to be thinking about a new relationship, and just kind of with the awareness of what has happened possibly in your current divorce, making some steps and some plans to help any future separations be less painful. So Marjha, welcome. And yeah, it's lovely to have you here. Do you want to tell us, I know I've introduced you, but do you want to just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me to chat with you today, and for your subscribers to tuning in, and hopefully we'll be able to give them a bit of insight and a bit of guidance really about where they can take their financial planning and their relationship planning. And that's really at the key of one of the things that I do here at RDP, under our wealth protection umbrella really, which is talking about relationship planning, talking about the succession planning, and really bringing those things together for our clients. You know, as you say yourself, lots of people who might be tuning in now have either been through or going through a divorce or separation, and they might want to actually be thinking about how they ensure they don't go through the same arduous process if they've been through it already, or how they can actually just make things simpler and feel more empowered if they're in that position again, which is exactly what I know both you and I do with the work that we do with our clients.
Absolutely. I think that word empowered is important. It's about ensuring that you don't feel as vulnerable going forward. But, you know, being on the front foot and kind of organised and prepared, I think is key as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
What can clients do to protect their independence and security if they go into a new relationship? What are the options?
I think the biggest thing that I talk to clients about is not just looking backwards about what they have or haven't done before, whether you've been involved or not kept up to speed with finances in the past. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't feel empowered and enabled to take them on going forward. And with so many things in our life, it's okay to bring in professionals and expertise to help you do that. And one of the things that I do when I'm talking to clients in their sort of relationship planning, and thankfully it's something that I get asked time and time again and can quite happily say, and like I don't always get in other bits of family law, you have loads of options, you know. And without getting us too technical to kick off with, there are a few routes, whether you're cohabiting or intending to get married. You know, as a basic principle, if you don't want assets or cash to be shared with someone, then not joining them into a title or a lease or a rental, or giving them access to a bank account is a really practical way of starting off. But we all know that life isn't that simple. And there is no such thing as a common law husband or wife, but there is a way that you can inadvertently bring another person into your financial picture without necessarily intending to. And that's when people are cohabiting together. They might be making joint financial contributions towards their lifestyle, or very practically towards a property and its upkeep and its running costs, essentially. And that gets more complicated the longer that you cohabit and the greater level of sort of intermingling that you might have in your finances. And the way that you can avoid that becoming complicated is by having something called a cohabitation agreement. Okay. And what that agreement is, essentially, is a contract that sets out the way that you're going to deal with your financial relationship. So if you don't want that financial situation to create a legal relationship, then the cohabitation agreement will say we might be contributing equally to utility bills and the upkeep of the property, but we don't intend that to create a legal relationship whereby we both jointly have a financial stake in the property. And that can be really sort of powerful when you're thinking about yourself, maybe as a woman who's come out of a divorce or a financial relationship, and you want to ensure that what you have probably fought quite hard to achieve remains yours. And the likelihood is that you've gone into a relationship with a new person who wholly respects that.
Yes.
And because of the fact that you've come through that before, you're probably going to be with someone who's going to respect that. And actually, the document that we're talking about ensures that there is not a financial relationship that is created inadvertently. Okay. You're making sure that what you have agreed is set out nice and clearly in writing. And the same principle applies if you're going to enter into a new marriage. And that document is either a prenup if you're entering into it before you get married, or a postnup if you've already got married and have come back to the question about your financial relationship. And a prenup is a document entered into by a couple at a time where they enter a financial disclosure process. That doesn't have to be particularly onerous, but it is where they are putting on the cards their financial picture and entering into an agreement that says what would happen if that relationship comes to an end. And of course, we all know that's not particularly romantic, but it's no more or less romantic than at some of the other financial planning that we quite happily talk about. You know, I really hope that people are having discussions with their trusted advisors about things like wills and trusts, LPAs, and I hope that we can come on to have a chat about that. But actually talking about a pre or a post-nut or a cohabitation agreement is simply planning. That's all it is. And the best analogy I can ever give to my clients is that a pre or post-nut is a bit like travel insurance for the holiday of your life. You don't take out travel insurance and expect that the worst is going to happen. You just have your very sensible hat on and you say to yourself, how do I make sure that if something does happen, we are all protected, we know what's going to happen, and we have already had those difficult conversations when the sun is shining before the clouds descend and things become difficult. And that's all that document does. I think actually when clients think about it a bit more like that, they feel that actually they can feel empowered, they can feel confident enough to say, this is a document that me and my new partner are going to enter into.
I love that. And I assume then that a post-nut works really similarly. You're just doing it afterwards, but it's the same principle.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is exactly the same document in the sense of how it is viewed by the court. Yeah. And in some senses, it takes away one of the questions that can be raised about the validity of a document, which is the timescale. Because, of course, if you're getting married, then we need to make sure the document is in place far enough in advance. But if you're already married, then in some senses, that planning is a little bit easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think this is really interesting, Marjha, because a lot of women that I work with, and I know this is quite common in general, make the decision to never get married again. You know, that kind of becomes a real conscious, I am never going through this again. But possibly don't recognize the vulnerability of cohabiting. And I suppose it's the opposite of when you have a cohabiting couple who think they're common law wife and spouse and think, you know, that's going to have security. This is the opposite of that, where you think, well, we are not married, therefore we are not financially connected, and therefore there is no call on my estate or my finances should we separate. So I hope it's a real kind of awareness for the audience listening now to understand that a cohabitation agreement is something that they could be considering. When we think about the cohabitation agreements, the pre and the post nups, are they legally binding? You just touched on them there, but are they? Does it set down in law and it's going to work?
Well, it comes as a surprise to many people that the family court retains the overall say on whether an agreement or settlement that a married couple or cohabiting couple have entered into is approved or not. And that's the case whether you're entering into a prenup or whether you're asking the court to approve an order that on divorce you have agreed is going to be the terms of your financial separation. And it can be seen by some as a very sort of paternalistic approach. And whilst we're not going to get into that today, you know, knowing that there are prerequisites and that there are requirements for these sorts of documents to be binding, or upheld is probably the better terminology, is vital. They're not automatically binding, but if they have been drafted well, with financial disclosure, independent advice, and in making sure that they meet the needs of the couple that have entered into the agreement and any minor children that they've got, so kids under 18, then there is no reason they won't be upheld by the court. And that same principle applies if you are a divorcing couple who have reached an agreement about what their settlement is going to be. You still have to apply to the court for that order to be approved. And of course, the reason you apply to the court for the approval of what you've agreed is to make sure that there is a clean break on your finances. And in some senses, we're flipping that around and applying the same principles when we're talking about a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement being upheld by the court. Same test applies, the same openness, the same requirement that you have gone into it with full disclosure and with all your cards on the table is absolutely vital. And for many clients, it's having gone through that process in divorce that they want to ensure that they are entering into these sorts of agreements, or at least being aware at this very early stage that they're an option, is protecting themselves for the future, for any future marriage or any future relationship.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I suppose the other thing that's kind of a real benefit here is that you're less likely for it to get acrimonious because you've thought through how you think it would be fair to split things. So you're hopefully already on the same page. Hopefully already kind of, although your relationship might have broken down, your new relationship, you're on the same page because you've had that thought process about how things would be split, and there's no surprises, or there shouldn't be. But I imagine, Marjha, if things financially have massively changed during that relationship, let's imagine you signed this and you were both working and for some reason you had to stop work during that relationship and it was agreed that you'd be financially supported by the other party, those might make any agreement that was made prenup be revisited. Would that be right?
Yeah, and actually these documents are best treated as a vehicle, and sometimes that vehicle needs to change. So we might be talking about a clause where you would revise it every 5 years, or that certain trigger events would also enable you to revise the document. But the key is that you are both doing it by agreement. And it comes back to that respect. It comes back to the planning, and it comes back to the openness that for so many of our clients is the foundation of a new relationship for them. And therefore is hopefully a foundation that's already solidly in place.
Yeah, and actually then when there are those major life changes and you maybe need to revisit this plan, you're revisiting at a point where you are still getting on, and actually decisions that are made that are best for the couple rather than with any sort of emotion attached to them. You know, there's no bitterness, there's no revenge, you know, there's no sense of trying to win or lose, because actually you're still in the relationship. You're like, okay, what still seems fair? And that seems like a great place to kind of be making those decisions rather than at the other end of things.
Absolutely. And as you say, coming from a place of mutual respect and coming from a place of financial empowerment, I think also brings with it such great value to our clients when we're talking about these documents, and knowing that they have come from a place where there's a mutual respect on finances and there's a mutual respect for how they will deal with each other in the future. I think that is just key. It's pivotal to these documents and pivotal to the relationships that I think lots of our clients want to ensure they're entering into.
One last thing then, Marjha, can we talk a little bit about how trusts could be used in this situation also?
Absolutely. They are such an important vehicle, again, for clients who are relationship or succession planning, but getting quality expert advice is absolutely pivotal. Trusts are a really complex area of law, and when they're done well, they can protect your wealth, not only for your own lifetime, but for loved ones, future generations, for years to come. And they shouldn't sit alone. You know, when we're talking about planning for trust or any other sort of legal document, we should be talking as well about a well-drafted will, considered, really explored expression of wishes, and maybe documents like lasting powers of attorney as well, which can deal with your health or your finances during your lifetime if you're not able to. So these really are documents that should be lots of pieces of a puzzle without feeling overwhelming or without feeling that anybody is out of their depth, because each of these steps allow you to be your own financial manager. And you and I both know that sometimes being a good manager is actually about delegation. Use your professional support network, use your accountant, your financial planner, your lawyer to help you do that. And each of those pieces of the puzzle should leave you with a picture where you feel comfortable, where you feel confident, and where you feel empowered. We keep coming back to that word, but empowered about your finances, whether that's maybe structuring your inheritance tax planning, giving you knowledge, tools and resources, and trust and the documents that we just talked about all come into that, really. And you've got a great video about preparing for a meeting with a financial planner, and so much of that resonates with me when I'm talking and giving guidance to clients about preparing for their meetings with me, others within our wealth protection team, and other professionals within their support network. And that's how clients can really get the value out of it.
I love that. Thank you, Marjha. That has been really insightful. I'm going to put your links in the comments below, in the description below, so that people can reach out to you if they've got any more questions or if they want to work with you, and they can get in touch. So thank you, and thank you to the audience. I'm going to do another video around trusts, and we can delve into that a little bit more, because they can be, as Marjha has said, so super useful in terms of making sure that we think about how your wealth is going to pass through the generations and how we can create some security about who gets what, particularly in these kinds of situations. So thank you, Marjha, and I'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Gary.